All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. For the next 4 hours, I'm your host and your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern on the X Zone Broadcast Network and our growing family of broadcast affiliates, satellite programming providers, and internet networks. And if you'd like to send an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and our main website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour, X-Zone Nation, is Sarah Pickles. She is a British medium, and she works internationally using Skype, the telephone, and she also does face-to-face. Now, while she's been a psychic all her life, Sarah had little knowledge of such things until her early 30s when she had her very first reading. After that, she became curious on how a reader could possibly understand her, and bit by bit, she realized that she was a natural psychic medium. Sarah has worked with spirit for over 11 years, providing consultations for the rich and famous to the simple person with no notoriety or claims to fame. She is renowned for her honesty, professional approach, accuracy, and drive to ensure each and every person she comes into contact with, they can trust her. Joining me now from her home in the United Kingdom is Sarah Pickles. And Sarah, welcome to the X Zone.
Thank you, Rob, very, very much for inviting me on. I appreciate your giving me some time.
It's great having you with us, Sarah. Tell us about that first reading that got you on your path to this now profession that you do.
Oh, wow. You mean the first reading I had?
Yeah.
Gosh, that was mind-blowing. I was completely innocent, ignorant of the whole way it worked. Mm-hmm. And this amazing lady called Mary, she just started talking to me, and she told me about me as a person, as if she knew me, as if she'd known me all my life. She talked about my job. She talked about my family. She talked about everything she possibly could. And I just sat there completely mesmerized, completely spellbound.
Wow.
And fascinated.
Was it hard for you when you first had your reading and then you started checking it out on how she could do this? And what was it like when you discovered that you, Sarah Pickles, were a natural psychic?
Yes, it was hard. I mean, it takes a lot of hard work to be able to connect to spirit, as I'm sure you know, and it's something we need to do all the time, day in and day out. I didn't realize I could do it for quite a few years, but I was curious, and I became a nuisance because I kept on ringing readers and asking them how they did it, because I didn't want another reading. I wanted to find out how they did it. Mm-hmm. And I kept on asking, and then I kept on reading books, and I kept on asking more questions, and nobody could give me the answers. And then bit by bit, it began to make a little bit of sense, but I was still confused. And then one day, I literally had a big bang on the top of the roof of my car as I was driving down the road, and a very clear voice said, "Listen." And I was like, "What to?" And silence. Nothing happened. And I was like, well, what am I meant to be listening to? And I don't know how long after that, I have no idea, it was hours or days, I suddenly realized I needed to listen to what was going on around me, in other words, my spirit guides. And from that moment onwards, it was like a whole new world opened for me.
Do you have one specific spirit guide that you communicate with, or is it a host of spirit guides that use you to communicate with this side of the veil?
I normally work with 3. I'm ashamed to say I don't know their names. I've never worried about their names because I trust their energies. And I trust that whichever one I'm working with, I know which one it is. I can see them, but I just I'm like a child. I just trust. And sometimes they say things to me and I query it, or I'm like, I can't really say that, or that's not really, should I really be saying that to somebody? But I know the language they use, each one is different. So I've got a really doody guy who works with me, and then I've got a more serious one. They're both men, and then I have a third one, and she's much more sort of flowing, more lyrical in her words. So depending on how I'm speaking, or depending on the phraseology that I'm using, and depending on their energies, because it's not always all serious. So my duty guide, he can be quite funny sometimes. So I know which one I'm working with, but the 3 of them are always with me. I think if they went off shopping or went fishing, I'd feel completely lost.
Sarah, stand by. You and I have to take our first 2-minute commercial break. Exonation, Sarah Pickles is our special guest this hour. www.sarahpickles.co.uk. And Sarah and I will be back on the other side of this 2-minute commercial break. Don't go by. And welcome back, everyone. Sarah Pickles is our special guest, www.sarahpickles.co.uk. And Sarah, what are the main reasons that people come to see you and seek out your communication with the other side?
Okay. It varies. It depends with each person. Sometimes it can be pure curiosity. More often it's regarding their career, their love life, a feeling of helplessness, contacting loved ones who have passed over, so they're looking for the mediumship side that I do. And I suppose the real biggie is also life path. When somebody comes, they want to know what they should do with the rest of their life, which is $1 million question that I really can't answer. It's got to be each person walking their journey as they need to, and all I can do is to help and support them whilst they're on their journey, if they're prepared to let me.
So in your opinion, after doing this now for over 11 years, what do you feel is the most important part of giving a reading?
Making people feel safe, making sure that I'm completely honest. I don't believe in giving false information. If I don't know the answer, I'm fully prepared to say I don't know. I believe that with a reading, with working with somebody, it's very important that we build a trust together. And it's really important that people are allowed to make their choices. So I see a reading as guidance. It's there to help people look at the Y junctions they're at. If they take that road, what will happen? If they take that road, what may happen? And it's a case of allowing them to make up their own minds. I do not feel that in any way I should dominate nor control a person. It's all about giving support, building trust, building honesty, and relying entirely on my guides. Without my guides, I can't do this. I'm completely helpless without it. So it's having my trust in my guides and showing the person I'm speaking to that they can trust not only me, but more importantly, my guides.
Do world events affect the type of questions that you get asked by the people who come to see you?
Sometimes, yes. Yes, they can do. Because I work internationally and because I work with all different types of people. I have people that ring me about what to do for their company, what to do with regarding staff and financial things and so on. I don't look at anything to do with legal cases. But when people are frightened or nervous about anything, especially with 2012, where people were very concerned as to what was going to happen and what changes, if any, were going to happen. Yes, quite definitely, world events can impact on people quite noticeably. And of course, there's so many massive things going on and have been going on in the world for so long. It's very difficult for people to trust, as I trust my guides, and I trust the universe. I trust working with everything that I'm able to work with. But it's not so easy for other people to do that. And as a human, we all doubt. Of course we doubt at times, and we all worry. So a very long answer to a very short question, yes.
How do you connect with the other side? How do you know if you're going to be able to make that connection when you have someone in front of you or even on the computer when you're doing a Skype consultation?
I always ground myself. In other words, I open myself up to spirit, and I make myself at one with the universe and with the earth. But I have a concern that I do the very, very best that I possibly can for each person, because we should never be arrogant. We should never be complacent on being able to just automatically connect. I have to make sure that I can connect before I speak to a person. So 15 minutes at least, if not longer, before I connect with a person, I actually sit and talk to my guides, and then I write down what I'm picking up about the person, which I then discuss with them when I first speak to them. And it's at that point I can say, okay, I'm connecting properly, or, which hasn't happened yet, no, I don't connect. I think it's happened 3 times where I've not connected with somebody clearly. And then I stop, and there is no charge.
Has there ever been a time where your guides have said, we're not going to do this one?
Yes.
How do you?
Yes, and I just have to say, I'm really sorry. I'm not connecting. Would you mind coming back another time? Or I can recommend somebody else that they can go to if they would rather. The problem is when that happens, and it is very, very rare. I've had it twice in 11 years. But the problem is that you have to be very careful how things are phrased, because you can make the person feel rejected. Or feel there's something wrong with them. It's not there's anything wrong with them. It's purely and simply there is a discrepancy in the connection. And I would rather say, no, I can't do the reading than let the person down. And I certainly could never make false promises.
So what is the most frequent question you get asked to ask those on the other side, for example?
Are they okay? Are they happy? Are they, when you say the other side, do you mean loved ones who have passed over?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very much. Are they happy? Are they safe? Do they have any messages? Can they forgive me? Are they sorry for their behavior? And sometimes the answer is no, they're not sorry. And that sometimes is difficult to put across. It's a case of finding the right words without making anything up. And so it's very much putting the words across as I'm given without elaborating in any way, but at the same time not being brutal, because, as you know, Rob, spirit can be very blunt,
yes.
And sometimes that's not always useful to the person you're speaking to. But at the same time, you can't be lying or elaborating in what you're passing over, because as a channel, we have to be completely clear that what we're giving is what we have been given to pass over.
How do you protect yourself from having the wrong spirit or the wrong entity from coming onto this side and affecting you personally? Okay,
I do a lot of smudging because I work a lot from my home, obviously not just face-to-face, but on Skype and phone. So I regularly cleanse, smudge our home, because I depending on whether my partner is also working from home, will depend on which room I work in. He's a counsellor, I think what you would call a therapist. So he's working with a lot of different energies. So it's very important that I'm always making sure that the house is got good and positive energies. I also obviously ask for my guides to help and support me against negativity, but I believe it's very important we take responsibility for our own spiritual well-being. So I use crystals, which I cleanse on a regular basis. When I finished work, I always shut my chakras down. I remove my roots. I cut the light off. So I've got my time of actually decluttering my area as such, my space. And I wear a pentacle always as well, which is always very good for protection. Also, as a Reiki master, I use a lot of Reiki for protection.
How long did it take you to become a Reiki master and so proficient in so many disciplines?
It took me, I think, but I'm not sure, I think it was 4 years to become a Reiki master. My partner and I both trained in level 1, and the training was a little bit strange, a little bit chaotic, and we found it quite disconcerting. And so I didn't train for level 2 for about a year, 18 months. And then I trained for level 2. Then I went on and did my mastership. I did practitioner and mastership teacher all in one go. And I've never looked back.
So you were very busy in making all this happen.
Oh, yes. It just became a total passion. And the more I use my Reiki and the more I work with spirit, the more brilliant it became and the more clear it all became.
Can anyone become a psychic medium?
No, but everybody's born psychic. And it's like we can all sing, but some of us sing really beautifully and some of us just make a noise. And it's the same. Some of us have very strong psychic abilities, but some not so strong. I do believe that everybody has an ability to tune into their spirit guides, quite definitely. When it comes to mediumship, I believe that we are given mediumship abilities from spirit. And I know when I first started doing readings for people and working with spirit, I had no idea I was a medium. And I got the shock of my life when I suddenly found a person who had passed over was beside me. And I had no idea what to do because this person was completely different from my guides.
Wow.
Yeah, it was wow. It was very wow.
So do you see spirits all the time?
No, because if I did, it would start to get exhausting. Although I have had a spirit sit on my bed and sulk at 1 o'clock in the morning because I wouldn't talk to him. But I tend to shut down as much as I can. The thing is, as I'm sure you're aware, Rob, if we're not careful, being very psychic, you can become intrusive. When talking to people where you're picking things up that they don't always want you to know about. And certainly with spirits who are passing through, my house is pretty cluttered anyway, and I don't need to be talking to every spirit that's passing through.
How long is your typical reading that you give your people who come to you?
Anything between 30 minutes to an hour.
Wow.
And all readings are recorded. If I feel that a person is too sad to have a reading, if they're suffering from depression, then I stop the reading. We're not allowed to do that over in UK. Obviously, there would be no charge. So even if I got to the end of the reading, if I've been talking for an hour, if the person then told me that they actually did have a lot of depression and were really struggling, then there would be no charge at all.
Wow, that has its pros and it has its cons. It's great for the person, but you give a reading for an hour and just to find out that the person is in a depressed state or is facing depression and you can't get paid for the reading you just gave.
Yes, it is. But on the other hand, you normally would know within the first 10 minutes.
I would imagine so. Please stand by, Sarah. We've got to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Exonation, Sarah Pickles is our special guest this hour. www.sarahpickles.co.uk. And we'll be back on the other side of the news and some words from our fine sponsors. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X-Zone. Don't go away. And welcome back, everyone. Sarah Pickles is our guest this hour. www.sarahpickles.co.uk. And Sarah, first of all, thanks very much for joining us tonight. Welcome back.
Thank you.
What do your spirits look like?
Oh, gosh. I have one who... he's quite tall. He feels and appears much taller than me. So he's probably, I don't know meters how high he'd be, but he's round about 6.5 foot, which I think is round about just about 190, 195, something like that in meters. It's actually the same height as my son. He's quite a big build. He has like it's almost like a light in his third eye. It's almost like a crystal there. Similar in a way to an Aztec, but not. I have another one who's Afro-Caribbean. He's a really duty guy. He just so makes me laugh. He's quite naughty. And the lady is more low-key. She just stays in the background. So she's not really worried, and I don't worry too much about what she looks like. I just know when she's working with me.
So do each of these spirits have a different job?
Yes. They all talk to me, so my clairaudient side is strong.
Right.
But I also see, so I see pictures in front of me, and I see them in my third eye as well. And I also, the clairsentient side is very strong. Sometimes I have to push that away. It gets too strong. And then the claircognizant, the just knowing side, is very clear as well. So it's a little bit like Piccadilly Circus doing a reading, because I have one talking in my ear, another one's pushing the emotions forward, the other one's showing me pictures, and then I've got the person sitting in front of me, and then I maybe have some people, loved ones who have passed over, who are behind me to my right.
Right.
And then I have energies of people who are alive who are to my left, front left. So it is really, really busy, but it all just seems to come together. And I taste things, so I know what it's like to have alcohol that I've never drunk, or different things like if somebody uses drugs or anything, or they have somebody around them who uses drugs, I know what it tastes like. I know what it's like to have a heart attack.
Wow.
And so it goes on. So they all give me different things, but they're all working with different energies, and because of that, because I know their energies so well, I'm very comfortable with them, which is why I have that trust with them.
How long have they been in the spirit world?
That's a very good question. A very long time. One of them's just putting up 2 fingers saying 200 years.
200 years? That's quite some time.
Yes. But I think with all of us, I don't know about you, Rob, but I meet many people that think that all their guides must be well-known people.
Yeah.
Or they must be Native American Indian guide, and they must have a chieftain. And I'm never worried about that. I just trust that the people I work with are there with me, to help me, to support me, to help and support other people. And because I know their energies so well, I don't worry so much as to how long they've lived for. When I look in the mirror, sometimes I see them standing beside me, and when I'm working with people, they can see my guides standing with me when I'm on Skype or when they're in the room with me. So if somebody's especially tuned in when they're working on their auras and their chakras with me, then they'll often be able to see my guides. They make themselves quite clear.
So your guides, do they ever change? Do you get different guides at different times, or are these the 3 main guides that are going to be with you?
I believe they're going to be with me. These are the 3 main ones, but I also have a Reiki guide, and then I have another person who stands in front of me. She's almost like protection, but she's quite young. So I normally have in total 5, but the 3 that I've been talking about, those are the main ones. But I have had people who've counted more than 5. And when I'm working with people, I always, when I ask a question, I know the answer before the person replies. Let me rephrase that. When I'm teaching people psychic development,
Yes.
I ask the question and my guides give me the answer before the person I'm working with answers me. So I know that it's correct what they're saying back to me. And the most I've had anybody see around me was 8.
8?
And I got
Wow.
yeah, but I've seen up to 15 around a person.
15?
So, yeah, so it just varies with each person as to, sometimes we have one going out and they're training a new one coming in, and that can be, increase the numbers. And then it depends how many healing guides you've got with you and so on.
Oh, I see. So there's quite a few variables in the entire realm of guides. It's just not, well, you've turned into a medium, you're with one guide and away you go. And I agree with you. There are so many people who I think like to add more value to who they want to be by using the analogy that they're Native American or Native Canadian guides, or they're shaman, or they're chiefs, or they're these famous people. And I really don't think they need to do that, because what it does is, in my opinion, is adds a flavor of mistrust.
I totally agree with you. I think that we need to really keep our feet firmly on the ground with all of this. I don't believe in, if I use Henry VIII, I wonder how many people would hope they got Henry VIII or Anne Boleyn,
sure,
or George Washington or whoever, or a great chieftain or whatever. But it is a kudos, and I think the reality is that. We don't need to be too clever about anything, because actually the reality is that spirit is spirit, and we're very lucky to be able to work with them. I find that humans are incredible. They really are. People suffer and they come out of it and they grow and they become more positive. And if they don't, then they've got to keep on learning. But at the end of the day, if we don't have that connection with our guides, then there's a bit of us missing. And for me personally, the greatest thing has been to see myself change and to find a peace within myself that, 30 years ago I wouldn't have believed possible. But it's not because I'm clever. I'm just a mother and a grandmother. I'm just a simple person who happens to have a strong connection, so I can help others. So for me, they don't have to be particularly spectacular guides. They're just my guides.
So when you're doing a reading that is not face to face, let's take for example you're doing a Skype reading.
Yeah.
Do you get the same information as if you were doing the reading for the person who was sitting right in front of you?
Yes, totally. The connection appears to be the same, whether it's Skype, face-to-face, or phone. And I have clients who fly in from New York and will come and see me. And I have clients who will, ring from LA. So if I've got somebody who's traveling the world, they can come and see me, or they can have a Skype reading or a phone reading. I've had people walking through the airport when they're wanting to call me and get some answers. And they tell me it makes no difference at all whether I'm face-to-face or not. For some people, they will sometimes want to be face-to-face. They would rather have that contact, which is absolutely fine. But for people who are abroad, they find that Skype is very, very good, because you've got that contact with the pictures, with the cameras. So for me personally as a reader, it makes no difference. As long as I can tune in, which I seem to be able to do.
Hi there, Sarah. We lost you there for a second.
I'm so sorry. I have no idea what happened.
This is what happens with Skype sometimes. And like I was saying to you before, technology is great when it works right.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So before, just when we left or we lost you, we were talking about people that were, you were using Skype because it had the two-way audio and two-way video, and people were able to use it on the move.
Yep.
But when you're doing a reading using Skype, and let's say in a busy airport, do you get bleed over from people who are sitting around this person, who are close to this person?
Not normally. If I have two people who want one to listen in on a reading and one who's wanting the reading, then I would have bleed over quite definitely. But I find when it's on Skype and if they're in a public place, they tend to go to a quiet area. And so far, touch wood, I haven't had a problem with that. But if I did, the person you're speaking to would pick it up very, very fast because they'd be like, that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. What about the, I'm looking for the right words here. What about the people who may actually create a dependency on your advice? Like I know from past experience that there are certain psychics who people will just keep on calling with every little decision in their lives. How do you guard against this from happening with people that you deal with?
Okay. When anybody comes to see me for their first reading, by first, whether it's first with me, but normally their very first ever reading, they tend to be, as I'm sure you know, with other people you've spoken to, they tend to be blown away by the reading. And their first question at the end of the reading is, when can I come back? Yeah. And I say not before 3 months, and 6 months is preferable. But I also make sure that it's very, very clear when I start the reading that they understand that they must not stop, the reading must not stop them living their lives as they wish. And that just because something hasn't been mentioned doesn't mean to say that they shouldn't make their own choices and their own considerations. I have had people who have rung me a week after a reading and they're like, you didn't mention this and this has just happened and I want you to tell me now what I should do. And I'm like, no, I can't be doing that. You need to be making your own decisions. I'm happy to support people, but at the same time, I don't believe that people should be having readings every day, every week, every month. It's just not right. And I try to explain that very clearly. When somebody has had a very big loss, whether it's a partner, a parent, a child or anything, then you have to be very, very clear that you're happy to support them, but that it's not right for them to have readings all the time.
Is there a certain age where you will not do a reading for?
Yes, under 16.
And do you find out that there are more and more people under the age of 16 who are trying to get readings?
Yes, and in this day and age, it's very difficult to know what age they are, because they all look a lot older than they actually are, especially the girls with makeup and so on. But normally people do have ID, and I ask my guides. I depend entirely on my guides for guidance, which is what they're there for.
Right.
But I also, if I have a restless feeling about it, then I'm actually, look, could you prove your age before I actually start the reading?
So how would you do that on Skype?
Well, I would expect to be able to see up on the screen, an ID or something like that.
I see.
That's the only way you can do it. I mean, so far, I haven't had anybody who hasn't been honest about it. I've always had people say, yes, I'm this age. And I'm like, well, I'm very sorry, I can't do a reading for you.
Well, that's good. How do you deal with skepticism?
I love it. Absolutely love it. It's important that people are skeptic because it makes them curious. And if they're curious, then it's good because they're wanting to learn. They're wanting to know how people like me work. I actually had somebody who came for a reading when I was at a fair, and he just sat down with his arms crossed. And I said to him after a few minutes, I feel as though I'm under the microscope, and he just nodded. And he had come because his wife had had a reading with me, and he didn't believe it was possible. for anybody to know that much about a stranger. And at the end of the reading, I talked to him for 20 minutes, and at the end of it, he just shook his head and said, "I can't believe this. I have to go away and think about it." So I think skepticism is good. It's very difficult to prove what you do unless you can ask the person to allow you to actually pick up information about them. And that's where we have to be careful, because I think we must be very careful not to be intrusive. You know, we can't go just climbing in people's heads without being invited.
Sarah, stand by. You and I have to take our final break for this hour. Exonation. Sarah Pickles is our special guest this hour. www.sarahpickles.co.uk. And we'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away. Exonation, Sarah Pickles is my special guest this hour. www.sarahpickles.co.uk. First of all, Sarah, great having you with us. I want to thank you so much for getting up so darn early to spend the hour with us. But I have to ask you, what are your spirit guides telling you right now?
Apart from that, the fact that it's very early in the morning in UK, what they're actually telling me now is, are you looking at buying a new car?
Nope.
You're not? Well,
Nope.
I think you might be looking at buying one. But apart from that, they're also saying that it's like your hands. There's something very strong about your hands, Rob. I don't know whether you do healing or what, but it's like there's a lot going on around your hands, and it's like you need to be using it on a more regular basis. Does that make sense?
I use my hands a lot all day, whether I'm writing, I'm typing, I'm editing. Everything I do, I use my hands with. So yes, I can understand that.
Okay. Do you have massage on your hands?
No.
Okay, maybe you should think about that.
Maybe I should.
Very relaxing.
Really?
Yes.
I'll have to think that one over. Sarah, if our listeners want to contact you for a one-on-one consultation, how can they do it? What's the best way?
Okay, they can email me on info@sarahpickles.co.uk, or they can send me a message via Skype, or they can text me if they wish. Really, any of those ways will, or Facebook. Although I tend not to use Facebook loads. But if they best is email or Skype or text if they wish to text me.
One quick question.
Yeah.
Do the ghosts ever want, or the spirits ever want to stay? And what's the difference between a ghost and a spirit?
Okay, for me, the difference between a ghost and a ghost is somebody, they show you what they look like at the point of death. So, for example, a person who, and this is a really extreme example, a person who has been shot, for example, then you would see, for me, I would see the place where they were shot. They wouldn't be complete as they were before they were shot. So that's a ghost. A person who is a spirit that's passed over, they might show the pain and they might show that they were shot, but they show themselves as a complete person, not an injured person.
Is there such a thing as evil?
That's a really big question and difficult to answer in seconds. I would say there's more negativity than there needs to be in the universe, in the world. But evil spirits, bad, negative spirits, I believe they're there, but so far I've not come into contact with them. But I believe if we do everything we can to protect ourselves by not just expecting our guides to look after us, but by taking responsibility for our own energies, then I think the two combined, protect us. I think there's so much that's not good in the world that It's more important for us to put out for that to be cleared than to be totally worried about negative spirits, although I do know some people who have come across them.
Sarah, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for sharing your spirit guides with us. And I look forward to the very next time that you join us back here in the X Zone.
Wow, Rob, thank you so much. I'm delighted to have been invited on. I'm really, really grateful, and thank you for the opportunity. It's been a real pleasure.
Sarah, the pleasure has been all mine. Thank you so much. Exonation Sarah Pickles has been our guest this hour. www.sarahpickles.co.uk. That's www.sarahpickles.co.uk. I'll be back on the other side of this break at 6.5 minutes past the top of the hour as the X Zone continues with yours truly from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away.